Hello, everybody. We are Christopher and Sarah, co-founders of the Vegan Warrior Academy and hosts of the 2018 Vegan Warrior Summit. The goal of this summit is to support, empower, and inspire vegans to spark new pathways for both personal and global change so that we can create the compassionate world we all wish to see. And we are super grateful to speak with Leslie Barcus today. She is the Executive Director of VegFund. Leslie has had extensive leadership experience in the nonprofit and private enterprise worlds and upholds the inspiring philosophy that innovative business models, products and services, and creative approaches for appealing to human reason and compassion can bring into being a kind, healthy, and generous world for people, animals, and the environment. Welcome to the summit, Leslie. We're so happy to have you.
Hi, good morning. Thank you, Sarah and Christopher. I really appreciate the introduction, and VegFund is delighted to participate in the summit. Thank you.
Oh, wonderful,
Awesome.
wonderful. And, you know, as we were speaking before we started the recording, that we just feel it's so important for vegans to feel supported in all ways. And VegFund is an organization that many vegans, many activists maybe haven't heard about. So what is VegFund, and how do you support people in their quest for spreading the vegan message?
So VegFund is a nonprofit grant-making organization located primarily in the United States, but our outreach is in fact global. And believe it or not, we're nearly 10 years old. We were founded in 2009, so next year will be our 10th year anniversary. And you know, you really hit the nail on the head that a lot of people still don't know about VegFund and about the resources and the financial support that we can provide to vegan activists around the world. Mm-hmm. So we have dispersed about $10 million since our founding for vegan activism.
Wow.
This year, I mean, we've made thousands of grants, and we must be near tipping sort of that 5,000th level of grant. I have to do a count more thoroughly when I do my year-end numbers. But we have worked with thousands of people around the world. We accept grant proposals on an open and rolling basis. So it's not like we have a deadline for the grant support that we are willing to provide. We provide grants to individuals as well as organizations. So however, you know, whatever form your vegan activism may take, we're there to support you. And we pretty much just need people who have the courage and passion to act in their respective communities, to educate the broad public about the benefits of plant-based foods and a vegan living, you know, for the benefit of animals, for the environment, for human health. So again, we're really here to support a global activist community and the efforts of, you know, activists around the world. So that really is our work, to support activism. And more recently, we began to combine our financial support with more activities and connecting activists together. Mm-hmm. Also in trying to build their skills and confidence, I guess, to, you know, take up activism in the first place. And then also to speak to the public, which sometimes can be very intimidating, and all of us, you know, feel the need to be supported. So that's really our role as a grant-making organization.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, that's really great, and to know that vegans have that support to continue to spread the vegan message is huge. So, what types of events, campaigns, and projects does VegFund typically support?
So if you look at our website at vegfund.org, you would find there a section on our grants. And essentially, we define our grants break them down into 8 different grant categories. So some of the easier grants that we make, if you will, because the content is sort of prepackaged, would be our community outreach program. And within community outreach, we offer grants in food sampling, in documentary or film screenings, and then the paid per view. The paid per view is when the activist is showing someone a video, whether it be on a laptop, about, you know, factory farm production or farming production generally. or through the virtual reality. We see people walking along these days with lots of headsets on, or virtual reality, or food sampling screenings. And then our veg fests are kind of located in that community outreach area. And the reason those grants that are in community outreach are so popular is because obviously in food sampling, the food may already be made. So activists go and they buy some meat or dairy substitute, and it might already be made. So it's real easy to go buy that product, put it out there in the community to sample the food, see people's reaction to. You don't have to interact much. The food interacts for you.
Right.
Similarly, for documentary or film screenings, the messages are already inherent, to the film. So you don't have to get up and do a lot of public speaking. You can just kind of engage in some of these activities fairly regularly. The same with the pay-per-view videos. And then the Veg Fests, of course, are a very, very popular avenue that activists like to follow because you're with a group of people. You're with a group of a like-minded community, and you have connections, so they're very popular. So apart from those 4 grant areas that we wrap up under this community outreach label, we also have a very active online campaign grant in which those activists are primarily using Facebook ads or Instagram, I would say for the most part, and or doing vegan challenges. So the online campaigns might be simply about awareness raising for the general public, and they're using the channel of Facebook to reach out to people. Then the person seeing the ad would click through and they would get back to the video, if you will. So that's also a very popular area within VegFund, where people like to request funding. Those are a little bit more sophisticated, that grant area, simply because you really have to understand how to use Facebook effectively and efficiently. And that's harder all the time as Facebook has, kind of changed some of its rules and algorithms and what have you. But anyhow, it is a popular area. We also then have some more blue sky categories, I guess I would say. One are learning events. So we have people saying, just like you all have put together this Vegan Warrior Summit, there are opportunities to bring activists together for skills building. So we have a learning events category for the likes of you folks who say, hey, we could use some grant support to do our thing out there to pull activists together. And or through that category, we also support initiatives that might be dipping more into the medical community and the use of plant-based foods for cardiology, or someone who is motivated by environmental concerns and they want to partner with us, to try to bring the environmental community into the vegan space. So learning events, and then we also have a research category. So folks who are saying, hey, I really want to do some bang-up, data-based research. And then finally, innovative outreach. And that's kind of the bucket in which we capture those grants that people say, well, I really don't fit here and I really don't fit there, but I fit here in innovative outreach. And I can talk later maybe about a few examples of innovative outreach, but we essentially have those 8 categories, and some of our grants are super small, right? You don't have to be a big organized organization to access grant funding from us. Some of our grants literally are $10. That make a lot of sense for us in terms of organizational efficiency, but we want to be supportive, right? We want to encourage people to do whatever they can. So some of our grants are really small. The average grant maybe being, $1,500 as an average across all of our grant categories. So that suggests that we really do work with small individuals, not that they're small, but individuals who are doing small things, all the way up to, larger organizations and everything in between.
Wow.
Sounds like you got all the angles covered, and this is very well thought through, clearly, because of all the different categories that, and I'm sure it keeps expanding over time and things change, but that's wonderful.
Yes. So, seeing that vision in mind, what kinds of events or projects would you like to see VegFund getting more involved in?
Well, I really think that all of the projects or events that we fund are valid, right? Because it takes people coming from all corners with all kinds of creativity to affect behavior change, which is ultimately what we're trying to do in this space. We're trying to affect dietary behavior change, and also consumer product behavior change among the general public. So everything is really valid. But naturally, you know, I mean, working towards sort of this vegan vision is a very holistic agenda.
Mm-hmm.
It takes people who are interested in health and human diets. It takes people who are interested in consumer products. It takes people who are interested in the environment and, you know, clean air. You know, it takes people interested in humane education to educate the youth about, you know, what their choices are and their responsibilities and how they can think about the world differently. So we really see everything as being very positive, honestly, and that's why we accept very modest grant proposals as well as things that are more sophisticated. Certainly, we're always interested in scale, meaning where you can engage in an outreach activity and you have a pretty good return on investment, if you will, or bang for the buck, I guess we like to call that. And then, you know, we're also very interested in things that are measurable. And by measurable, it doesn't mean that we're saying, oh, your project must absolutely affect dietary change 100% with that person you're interacting with. I think for many people, veganism is absolutely a journey. And so as we think about activism, I think we put a lot of pressure on ourselves in the activist community to create that huge step of behavior change, which is dietary change. But I think we need to say, wait a minute, maybe my measurable should be, did I give 3 very concrete pieces of information and messaging to my recipient, and did they hear me, and are they able to feed those back to me? So I think, you know, we love things that are measurable, even if the gain is fairly modest.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Absolutely.
And so what are some success stories that you can share or you've heard from activists that have received funding from your organization? If you can just share a few of those.
Well, you know, again, I think anybody who is getting out there has the courage and the passion and the initiative to get out there into the world and do something. To me, that's a success story. So, you know, really, whether it's in our more modest food sampling program or, you know, where someone's shown a documentary screening and you see people shed a tear, you know that you're reaching people, and all those messages and all those efforts really count. I mean, they sincerely really count of whomever you're trying to influence. Because behavior change is a very sticky thing, right? You're
Yes.
trying to fight the tide of societal pressure and family pressure and accessibility of food and cost of food and the unknown of what are these food products and convenience and access. Like, there are a lot of things that are very difficult to take on when you're thinking about, you know, dietary change as a non-vegan. And so I think, you know, any and many of our projects have been absolutely successful in those grant categories that I named. You know, we've had some, I think, very powerful response with, I'm going to throw their name out there, but Animal Equality and the iAnimal video series, you know, the virtual reality. That seems to be a very popular program. Our screenings, The Last Pig has been very popular this year as a documentary screening. We now have Dominion coming out. We're also supporting Kangaroo. We have supported in the past Cowspiracy. And documentaries are really powerful ways to, I think, change people's hearts and minds, because the viewer can have their own experience with that. You know, they don't have to be confronted. They can just sit there and watch and have their own experience. Gosh, you know, we recently made an exciting grant to a project called Akashinga in Zimbabwe, and Damien Mander, who is working there, is working with village women whom he has organized as anti-poaching units, and they're protecting wildlife, but also teaching the community about vegan diets.
Wow.
So, a very, very powerful and exciting project, because that speaks to the confluence of our food system and the negative effects it can otherwise have on wildlife, and, you know, trying to change people's hearts and mind by bringing those two together, which you also get the environmental bang for the buck. So that's a very exciting grant. You know, grants with religious organizations where they're saying, hey, gee, maybe we need to think about the way we treat other species in our spiritual development. So, I mean, I have to tell you that there are grants just threaded through VegFund, which the results have been really exciting. And again, I don't want to put pressure on that. We're not necessarily saying that the success had to come from wholesale dietary change, but it's really about putting the viewer on the journey and making them reflect and seeing them be in action. And then maybe you find someone who went to a screening who said, hey, I'd like to screen that. That to me is success.
That's amazing. Well, it really sounds like your support, your outreach is so incredibly extensive. And I know you already mentioned how, different activists can get funding for a wide variety of projects, whether small or large. And so I'm wondering if there are any, what are the major requirements for receiving grant money from VegFund?
Well, the big major requirements are you have to be 18 because you have to be contractually able to take a grant. And be vegan, although we do have some lessening of that requirement, particularly for the documentary films and screenings, because again, the message is in that screening. So we like that if you're not vegan, but you want to do a screening, that maybe you try to partner with someone who is following a vegan lifestyle, just to kind of uphold the messaging that might come forward through questions at beginning or ending of the screening. However, it's not a hard and fast requirement, so that is one opportunity for people to get in if they're not vegan. And then VegFund itself, while our work and our job is really to support vegan activists, there are times that we will support a conference that maybe doesn't have a 100% vegan message, but we're supporting that conference because we're showing up and holding up the vegan banner, or we're supporting someone who is vegan within that conference to again support vegan messaging. So really, the major requirements are, for the most part, that you be enthusiastic, have initiative, be passionate, compassionate, that you're 18, and for the most part that you're vegan, but not for all of our grant categories.
Wonderful. That's helpful information.
Yeah, that's great. And so do you have any other advice for vegans looking to apply for a grant? Any other things, any other information you'd like to provide?
Well, I just think that if you're new to vegan activism, start small. Probably try to start with a community or a buddy, and that's why I think VegFest can be a really nice entree for people to volunteer for VegFest and step straight into a community. Otherwise, again, I think some of these grant-making activities that are more prepackaged, where you have the documentary screening that has the messaging, or you do the food sampling and the food kind of speaks for itself. Those are interesting ways to begin. Otherwise, we can give you all kinds of support to tap into our grant management system. We have a new grant management system as of last month. It's operating on a platform called Fluid Review. Not that really matters. At any rate, we're happy to support people to get to our grant management system. We are asking that they fill out a very brief profile online that they'll see when they get there, because we're using that information to see what kinds of skills building areas, for example, that activists need. What is their demographic profile? How can we connect them with other people that they might be interested in their community, whether by age, whether by other demographic preference, who knows. So the advice is get active, try to find a community. We're trying to forge, again, those community connections. But I think if you're new to this, start small, and obviously as you gain more confidence, then you'll probably step into some of the more sophisticated grant areas.
Wonderful advice.
That's great.
Wonderful advice. And we also like to ask all of our interviewees, what does it mean to you to be a vegan warrior?
Well, I think to be a vegan warrior really takes patience and commitment and leadership skills. We're trying to mainstream a very difficult thing here. People have been raising and eating animals for a very long time. Settled agriculture, as we know, for more than 10,000 years, right? So we're trying to reverse the course of human history here and humans' natural choices, I guess, and behaviors at this point. So I think for those of us who are working in this sector, it really does take patience, and it takes leadership to come at this from a very empathic place to other people. Because for lots of people, they've never heard the word vegan, they don't know what it means, or they have ideas that veganism is something like really far out there, strange, it's a cult, who knows what. So, it's really going to take leadership to kind of have hold of ourselves to realize that it's a very long, enduring, difficult issue. It's going to take patience, and it's going to take really having a good grip on yourself to confront things that are really pretty awful, and that there's going to be a lot of loss yet into the future. It just is what it is for now. There are lots of promising things coming online, maybe some of the clean meats that hopefully might appeal to the mass market, but until those things happen, we have evidence that meat consumption, unfortunately, is still growing. It's growing in parts of the developing world that are able to consume more now. So we have to take a very deep breath and I think absorb that loss that is to come, whether it's to animals, to the environment, and to human health for that matter. So you do have to be a warrior, right? You really have to steel yourself inside to do this work and witness a lot of things that are absolutely horrible. Take it on and move forward.
Very wonderful, wonderful definition of a vegan warrior. I enjoyed that.
Yes. And so do you have any other updates you'd like to share?
Well, as I referenced earlier, we do have a new grant management system. We have a brand new, spanking new, also in July website, again at VegFund.org. And I think on that website, it should be pretty clear how you apply for a grant, how you might join a community. So two of the communities we've set up at this time, we've set up a VegFest practitioner group. I guess you would think of it as almost maybe not a working group, but an exchange area where VegFest practitioners can share their trials and tribulations and successes of organizing and implementing VegFest. And then we have another forum that is just set there to stimulate general conversation among activists and raise questions and get those folks to exchange and enter into dialogue. So those are two platforms that you can find on our website off of the community dropdown. We have a nice calendar of events now of at least VegFund grantees, so people can see some of the activities that are scheduled to take place out there in their community as a way to volunteer and connect with people who are planning something in whatever locale. And as well, we have a new resource section. So we are building on this idea of providing resources to vegan activists, as well as soon to come, we're starting to work on it now, but kind of a slate of skills building activities that they can participate. It might be an webinar about online campaigns. And for the online campaigns, a thing that's really a challenge right now are all these European regulations on the GDPR, the global data, I forget. I only know it by the acronym. At any rate, it's really quite something for people who are collecting information about people online, because you have to be able to make sure that you're meeting privacy data and privacy standards, and so it's complicated. So we want to do a webinar, we think, like for one of those kinds of things, or it might be how to speak to non-vegan audiences. So we're coming up with all kinds of ideas. We just don't have all those ideas pulled together yet, but people should be on the lookout for that.
Wow, you guys are doing amazing work. I'm just so thrilled to have you on the summit. Thank you so much for coming on, Leslie. And to keep up with VegFund, as she said, you can follow them at vegfund.org. And lastly, if you would like to own this interview to refer to later, as well as the others, you can purchase your All Access Pass by clicking the link below. See you guys around.